Hello, YouTube followers. My name is Mary Lou Edwards. I'm with Mason McDuffie Mortgage in Tracy, California. Today, I wanted to talk about 5 great winning tips to get your offer accepted in this hot seller's market. So, I know this is interesting to a lot of people, so I thought I would share my knowledge. I've been in the business for 25 years and know a few things. So, number one, um, find out what the seller's motivation is. Is it because they're moving out of state? Do they need free rent back? Do they need to have a short escrow, a long escrow? What are the terms that they would like so that you know how to write your offer, right? There are other unique other benefits that you can offer your seller, such as how about you pay for their transfer taxes? That's usually only 1.1% of $1,000 per $1,000 on the sales price. So on 500,000, that's only $550, and that's just one less thing for them to think about. How about paying for their title insurance fees? That's maybe another $1,000 in a high price market like in California. I mean, those things are small, but it could mean a lot to a seller. And of course, they know that you really, really want this house. You can also even offer to pay for their moving costs. How about wouldn't you love that as a seller, right? If somebody offered to pay for your moving fees, that could go as high as $5,000, right? um, and maybe some free rent back. Maybe you have some time that you could stay in your other place, rental or home that you own, and you have that time to be able to give to them, and that would sweeten the pot a little bit more, right? Aside from a higher sales price. So that's number one. What is your seller's motivation? Number two, a lot of people are already doing this, and maybe you have done this already, but write a nice letter about you, yourself, if you're alone or if you're your spouse or your family, and say, get a little bit more into the nitty gritty of how your family works and why you love their house and why you love the neighborhood, and maybe you have a cousin that lives nearby or an aunt or something like that. That just make an emotional connection with the seller. Maybe a video would be even better that you could maybe text or email to the seller or your agent. So that's number two. And then number three would be to have a very solid pre approval letter. That's where I come in. What I do is I collect all the paperwork, do the application, run your credit, run everything I can run. And then I give you a spreadsheet of side by side scenarios on what you can and can't do, as well as what's going to happen if you have to go over the asking price and where would the numbers be at that point. So that's one thing. If you have somebody who has a solid reputation in the neighborhood in the county, it does help. So that I can do for you. Number four, how about shorten the six contingencies? So there are six contingencies that are on an offer. Number one is appraisal. That's the biggest thing that sellers worry about, because if they want to get top dollar for their home, it's probably not going to appraise for as high as what it's going to sell for. So what's going to happen? The buyer has to pay the difference between the sales price and the appraised value. So if you come in with a very short appraisal contingency period or even no contingency period in a very hot market, that should certainly help. Number two is a loan contingency. Can you make it shorter? Can you make it 7 days instead of 21 days? That I'm sure a seller would love. Number three is home inspections. If you're going to come back and forth and say, can you repair this and that? And, maybe you can just go without a home inspection. I mean, you could still get it and then know what's really going on, but make it where so that the seller doesn't have to worry that you're going to go back and forth and they're going to have to physically do a lot of these repairs themselves, right? And they're in the middle of moving and they're buying another place, so they don't want to deal with all that. And then we also have the loan contingency. Of course, you want to make it as short as possible. Then you have seller disclosures, you have the title report, and if there's HOA homeowners association, then there are documents for that as well. So what's going to happen when you release these contingencies one by one? Once you release all of them, there is a chance that you could lose your earnest money deposits, and the seller has that right to take that away from you. So another also part of the what makes an offer sweeter is, of course, the higher your earnest money deposit, because the more you're willing to risk, and because you really really want this house. So you want to make it as high as maybe 3% at least of the sales price. 1% is the lowest, maybe 3% is pretty good. Of course, the higher the better, and then they know this is, you're serious. Then the last thing I wanted to say is there's a thing called an escalation clause. And this is really interesting because this is happening more and more now. So as part of your offer, let's say the house is 500,000. You want to write an offer for 500,000. And then you write on the escalation clause that you can go $1,000 over the highest bidding offer. Of course, you want to get that in writing, but you can also put a cap on that. So let's say you can go as high as 550, let's say, right? So you go $1,000 over the highest bidding offer up to 550,000. So that almost kind of guarantees that you get the house, right? So I hope these tips were useful to you. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to give me a call. My number, 925-285-5333. Hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.